Welcome back to Imperfect, the Heart-Centered Leadership Podcast. I'm still so delighted that we are now in season 5. Like, I just want to pinch myself, like our 5th season. Like, where did those 4 seasons go? And here we are on the heels of 5. I just want to give a shout out to all of you that have left us nice reviews and 5 stars. And we continue to talk about the things that people don't want to talk about. We continue to be imperfect and vulnerable. And I'm delighted to have Michael O'Brien. What a fine Irish name, by the way. Michael O'Brien. My Uncle Jerry would just love your name. He wouldn't even have to meet you. He'd say, he'll be a fine lad with a name like Michael O'Brien. So Michael, welcome to the show. We landed up meeting through our colleague and friend, Chip Conley. We were on his Ask Me Anything session when he was talking about his book, which I literally digested in 1.5 days. I loved it so much. And just embracing all that midlife wisdom and all the goodness that he shares. So thank you for reaching out and connecting. And I think we're going to have a great conversation. So we changed things up last year, and I don't read bios anymore because I don't think it's my right to talk about your life. So give us a little overview and share with our listeners a little bit about Michael O'Brien.
Well, Deb, so good to see you. I know we're going to have a great conversation, and I will pass along your compliments to my parents for naming me Michael James O'Brien. The name Michael, I wish it became popular. The last name O'Brien. So it's a very common name, but I own it. So a little bit about me. So I grew up in upstate New York, a little city called Rochester, right across the pond, Lake Ontario from Toronto.
Yeah.
I am America's favorite Toronto Blue Jays fan, which I know is not the national pastime of Canada. Hockey is, but I'm a huge Jays fan, and I'll be up watching them later on in the year. I spent my career in healthcare, like you, different side of it. On the medicine side of it, did everything from an individual contributor to leading a team of 1,000 and having more authority than I ever thought I would have in my life. I worked in oncology, so I've seen the pain of cancer. I've worked with Alzheimer's disease, so I've experienced the long goodbye. Also experienced other illnesses. And health is such a big part of my life. My mom was an LPN. She passed away a couple of years ago. My dad is still going strong. He'll be 88 now. I am a father of 2 wonderful daughters who are really good humans. My wife and I, we met in a personal ad before there was apps and stuff like that. And we've been married 30 years.
Wow.
We'll get into this, but I experienced a life-changing event, much like a lot of people, like yourself, other people that might be listening, that totally shifted, or at least made it possible to make a shift. I was hit head on by a Ford Explorer when I was out riding my bike in New Mexico, and I am lucky to be here. And the doctors they're somewhat still flabbergasted that I survived. They don't know how I survived, but I am here and I am back riding my bike, and we can fill in all those details and all that stuff. But that's a little bit.
Well, and it's exciting because my background is neurotrauma specialty. That's what I did. I was a neurotrauma case manager. So your accident, unfortunately, was a frequent to me with new clients that I looked after. And it used to be the number one question that families would ask me is, how did he or she survive? And I think we can go deep and wide. So I'm going to start with my leadership question. And I asked you a question about how do you lead from heart? And I'm turning your answer into a question because I think it's so beautiful. So how do you prevent a bad moment from turning into a bad day? Because I think people really need to hear what your compensatory strategies are for that.
Yeah. So So I called the day of my accident my last bad day. And it's an acknowledgement that during the course of a day, we're really just living and experiencing moments. And there's a really great parable about first arrow and second arrow. I think it's called second arrow. It might be called first arrow, but that doesn't matter. So the story goes like that. A warrior is traveling through a dense woods. And she is struck by an arrow. She doesn't see where the arrow comes from, but she is hit. And as you can imagine, it causes great. There's hurt, suffering, there's bleeding. And that first arrow, those first arrow moments in life happen. They come from outside of external forces. Mm-hmm. But as the pain continues, as she's in the woods trying to figure out how is she going to make it, will she get out? She shoots the second arrow at herself. That's the rumination, that's the worry, that's the anxiety, that's the, I'm going to get back to whoever shot this arrow at me. Those second arrows are ones that come from within. And they add to the pain of the first arrow. Mm-hmm. So in my recovery, one of my mentors shared with me, he said, hey, listen, Michael, everything's neutral until you label it. And that was that first step. I was like, what are you talking? Keep in mind, I'm in my hospital bed. I'm still in tremendous pain. I had a pretty significant concussion, although they weren't really treating me for that. This is 2001, so concussion protocol is much different today. Mm-hmm. They were working on my orthopedic and my vascular injuries because I had lacerated the femoral artery of my left leg. That's what made it sort of a life and death situation. So I wasn't really in the mood for like Yoda wisdom. I was like, everything's neutral until you label it. He went on and said, yeah, like between like stimulus and response, the Viktor Frankl quote that many people know. But he said, like, this happened. We're quick to put labels on things. So there's some neutrality. And in that space, you can call it anything you want to call it. So that coupled with the first arrow parable, I was like, okay, well, going back to that, if we are all living moments, and I get to the end of the day and I still have people in my life who I love, and they love me back, and how can I call the full day a bad day? Mm-hmm. So since my accident, I've had plenty of bad moments, like a ton of them, believe me. I've had some moments where I've been like so joyful, it's like oozing out of me. And I've had some moments where I've been pissed off that I just want to like punch back. Like all of it, like anyone. But I made a commitment in my recovery that I wasn't going to shoot any more second arrows at myself. Mm-hmm. And to take that bad moment and turn it into a bad day. So how do I do that? I think what the world needs is more like-heartedness, not like-mindedness. And we talk about that. We see that on the internet all the time. It's so good to be with like-minded people. I would prefer to be with like-hearted people. Mm-hmm. So coming from a good energy in our heart, that we offer kindness and empathy and compassion and love, although we don't talk about that at work, but we need it.
I'm trying to change that.
Yeah, I know. So those actions and living intentionally to our values, our first principles, and being centered around that alignment that I talk about and others talk about, those are all helpful to remember. Okay, here's a moment. It's really hard. Now, how do I want to, interpret it? And what do I want to do next? Do I want to shoot a second arrow at myself and make it worse? Or do I want to take some action that can be somewhat productive? And this is all not saying that everything's a moment. Some pain lasts a long time. Like I lost my mom during the pandemic. That was more than a moment, right? So this is not so literal. It's like this moment and then move on, and we're not honoring our feelings. It's about honoring what we sense, what we feel, and then having a healthy relationship with how we wish to process it and understand that. And then how do we want to continue to show up in the world, even when we've had a bad.
Well, and what I'm getting from it in just the way you talk about your strategy is I'm going to say mastering the art of emotional regulation, which is what every human being on the planet has trouble with on a daily basis. So putting it into these, little moments and not letting it be the whole day, it's brilliant. I always say to my clients, especially my executives, let's just work on 1 millimeter of moving that ahead. We don't have to take the whole pie. Let's just take one little piece of it. It's beautiful. Okay, my second question has permanent residency on the show. And we're in season 5. I just have to say that again because I'm still
I think, by the way, congratulations.
Thank you. It's just so, kind of like, what?
So it's just so awesome. Like, it's, a lot of people start things, but don't stay with them. And to get to year 5 or season 5.
I'm the little engine. Awesome. I just keep going, right?
I think I can. And then look at what you've done. So good.
It's amazing. I've met incredible people all over the world, and I am a people person, and I enjoy every podcast. And I now have some amazing colleagues and clients and friends, which wasn't, the goal of the podcast. It was to have meaningful conversations.
Sure.
So let me share with you the question that everyone has got asked, over 300 people. What imperfection does Michael bring to his heart-centered leadership?
Such a good question. I was ready for this. So I still have a little bit of a rock in my backpack of not feeling like I'm wanted. Because growing up, I didn't think I was wanted. And so that used to be a huge boulder dabbed in my back. It's still there. It's like one of those pebbles that if you step on it just the right way in your bare feet, it's either nothing or it will bring you down, right? And so if the conditions are right and I step on that pebble, then I take behavior that's trying to, feel wanted.
And this is such a beautiful, beautiful answer. And I just want to commend you on your vulnerability. So I'm going to add 2B to this because I think a lot of corporate people need to hear this. So when that pebble is stepped on in the right conditions, how does that show up in your leadership and how do you fix it?
So what it looks like, what it did look like in my corporate career was I'm just going to work. And it came from this place. So I want to be the hardest working. So here I have a team of 1,000. So my message to my team is I don't want you to have to feel like you have to outwork me. I'm going to work harder than anyone else on the team out of like respect and honor to you, sort of a little bit of a servant leadership type of vibe thing going on. But it really wasn't about serving those people. It was really the underbelly of it when it wasn't healthy was I'm going to work so hard that you're going to care so much about me that you're going to want me as your boss. It was really about me. I wasn't, now when it was good, when I would say something like that, and I really wanted to just show up in service to others, that was really healthy. And those moments definitely happen. But when it's unhealthy, and there's nuance, right? You know this through your work. There's discernment and nuance. And this is some of the inner work that I think every corporate leader can do. Maybe doesn't have to do, but there's an invite to do it.
Absolutely.
Is from where are you coming from when you're showing up this way? So when it was unhealthy, it was, I'm going to work so hard and I'm going to just show up and just be working all the time because I want you to like me. I want you to want me to be your boss because right now I'm feeling less than that. I don't feel wanted. Maybe you'll like me more if I really work harder.
Absolutely.
And so that just kept on. I just stayed on that hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Going. The other part of it was well, if I get to the next level, then you'll really want me. Like then I've really made. And if I get high enough, like, heck, it's almost impossible for you not to think that I have value and worth, because look at how big of a title I have, and look at some of the stuff I have. The trips
Absolutely.
my charmed life on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was coming from an unhealthy place. And those same behaviors can also come from a very healthy place. And it's really knowing yourself and really answering that question. All right, how am I showing up and where is this coming from? And how intentional is it to the values or the first principles that I really wish to honor?
I love that. I'm just going to put a period there. It was so well said. Okay, so you are a mindfulness person. You're a certified meditation teacher. I'm a yoga teacher. Of course, I'm going to ask this in my third leadership question. How can mindfulness help you lead from the heart? I know the answer, but I'm excited to hear what your answer is.
Well, you just sort of touched upon emotional regulation. So for everyone out there that's all about emotional intelligence, that's mindfulness. It's just in different packaging. I think mindfulness and the work that you do as a yoga teacher, this alignment and connection with the body and the breath and soul, heart, you come at leadership from a different place. It's heart-centric, not mind-centric. And when we come at our work and we sit with others in space from a heart position, heart-centric position, not a mind-centric position, then there's an outpouring of love and kindness, empathy, and compassion. In the mind, that's when we have the bias, judgment, the isms that exist in the world, the analyzing, the spreadsheets, all that stuff. But if we can come from our heart, and through mindfulness and through yoga, I think we can make a connection in a deeper relationship with our body and our heart and our soul and who we are from within. Then we show up different, and then we make a different type of connection because it's a different type of energy. When that happens, that's when we create cultures of belonging. We don't create cultures of belonging, in my opinion, when we lead just through the mind.
Correct. And one of the things that I've been asked to do this year is talk about the things that nobody likes to talk about, which I think I've been doing since season 1, but I think I'm getting a bit more bolder now that we're at season 5.
Yes.
I was told for 30 years that heart-centered leadership had no place in business acumen. So I write a little book last year and release it called the Heart-Centered Leadership Playbook, which still remains in the top 10. Funny enough, in healthcare administration, that's a full life circle moment, which is how I end each of my chapters in the book. And people are like, this is a true playbook, Deb. It's not a one and done, put it on the shelf. I'm bringing it back down, and I've got highlights and I've got Post-it note tabs. Yet the people who still think it's woo-woo, that's how I've been told it, woo-woo, I'm starting to see that they're merging the languaging. So I'm seeing things like connection cadence and different nuances, or they're trying to take heart-centered leadership and wrap it in the fancy business acumen, leadership language jacket, if you will. And at the end of the day, we all just need to be nice human beings to each other, because I've said time and time again, and I write about it in my book, our life shows up in our work, our leadership, and our leadership shows up in our life. And when we can be at one with that intersection, that's the magic. Nobody's looking for perfection. Yet this world and social media and technology and now AI, it's too fast. And I think we need to slow the cadence down, and we need to come back to just listening to each other, really listening, to not have, I always say, Heart-centered leadership, my definition, is honoring your connection with people. There is no reciprocity. The reciprocity is you have a new connection. You had a beautiful, meaningful, aligned conversation, and you actually listened. There's a novel thought. So I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, here, let me give you my last leadership question because I'm excited to hear how you're going to answer this. You talk a lot about community. I think it's a skill to build community, and I'm not talking about MailChimp and fancy platforms and all the rest of the stuff. How have you built an authentic, heart-centered community?
By showing up consistently over time. To build trust that I'm going to be there when it's awesome, and I'm going to be there when it really sucks, and all the points in between.
Absolutely. And don't just be there when things are going good. You know, I do a leadership video every day on TikTok, and I started doing it because I hated doing videos. I didn't think I was good at it. And then my marketing agency said, can you just keep doing videos? Because just do 1 minute because you're really good. And on the days when I'm in the valley is what I call it, or I'm not 100%, those are the ones that do the best.
Yeah, isn't that surprising? But not surprising.
My highest one to date, I was in the laundry room and I had an epiphany and I shared it and the dryer buzzer went off and I laughed at myself. Sometimes Siri even shows up and asks me what I want or tells me what time it is. And I just laugh and I'm like, this is so imperfect. It's wonderful.
Love that.
Okay, I'm going to switch to my Fab Four. We have 4 new questions because it's season 5.
All right, I can't wait.
First question. What's one practical tip you'd like to give our listeners for embracing heart-centered leadership into their daily life?
I would say take a minute each day to slow down, connect with your breath, connect with your body, and spend a moment just expressing gratitude, setting your intentions on how you want to show up for your next moment.
Exactly. Beautiful.
Have some contemplation. Just start with 1 minute. Want to do more? Cool. I believe if we can have 1 billion people do that each day, we would have a kinder, more peaceful world.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Okay, this one's funny. And just tell me what's sitting on the top of your mind. Don't even think about this. If your leadership style had a theme song, what would it be?
Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode.
Oh, good one. When I give myself that question, I always get Dream On by Aerosmith.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one. That's a great song.
But I like yours. Okay, third question. What would summarize as the key takeaway or lesson from our discussion today?
That like energy finds like energy.
Read it. Well, Michael, before I give you the last sentence to finish to close out the show, I want to say thank you for being an initiator and reaching out after we shared a small square on Chip Connolly's big Brady Bunch board that day. There were so many people on that call and you reached out. And I'm just so appreciative. And I hope our conversations continue. And I hope your health continues in your recovery because it's lifelong after something like that. And, you had kind of a double whammy with COVID, losing your mom. So big heart love to you because grief is hard and messy. And it literally is 1 second at a time some days. So thank you for sharing your heart and your story and your wisdom. And I'm going to ask you to close out the show by finishing this sentence. Heart-centered leadership is
the key to a fulfilling life.